目を欺む Hello and welcome to the Worst Newscast. As always, I am the Worst Chase. Hope you're all doing well out there today. It is July 15th on this Wednesday in the year of our Lord 2020. Halfway through the year of hell, so, hang in there, folks. Um, got a lot to cover today. A couple things that we missed in the past few days, and some new developing stories. Some of y'all sent me some stories, which is awesome. I really appreciate that. A couple things we're going to get into today. Trump bypassing the CDC, as well as... Ooh, I don't know where I put my notes. Excuse me. We're also going to be looking at... Lord. Here we are. The Postal Service kind of being under attack at the moment from the inside. We'll talk about how Trump's appointed Postmaster General is derailing the service. And we're also going to talk about federal police showing up in Portland, which is a pretty scary thing. They're there arresting people. It's a little unclear exactly what their role is and who they are accountable to, so we're going to dive into that a little bit today. As always, I appreciate y'all joining me. I feel like now is probably a good time to let y'all know that I've accepted a sponsorship. I am now sponsored by Goya black beans, specifically the unseasoned black beans. They will not let me have a contract with the seasoned ones. So go out and buy Goya unseasoned beans. No, obviously, if y'all don't already know the story, the CEO of Goya recently spoke about how great he thought Trump was, which upset a lot of his consumer base. And now the Trumps, Ivanka as well, are out shilling the product, which is, illegal. In fact, we can go ahead and dive into that story right now. Let me see what I got to do here. I'm using studio mode now, which I do not usually use. So hopefully that'll make some of my transitions
terrific. Senior advisor to the president, Ivanka Trump, is facing back.
Did you see how she kind of choked a little bit when she said that? Senior advisor to the president, Ivanka Trump. Which is like, it's like saying that my daughter is my senior advisor. And, she would probably be a more competent one, even though she's only 12.
Backlash, and is potentially in violation of the ethics law after she shared a photo endorsing Goya black beans on her social media accounts. Yesterday, the president's daughter posted Goya food slogan, "If it's Goya, it has to be good," in both English and Spanish, alongside a...
She didn't even try to make it, non-advertorial, She could have just, posted it and been like, oh, this is a great product for Americans. Something, I don't know. She just straight up did it like an advertisement.
Smiling photo of herself holding the can of beans. The endorsement follows the CEO of the company declaring last week, quote, "We're all truly blessed at the same time to have a leader like President Trump," during a White House event. However, the president's daughter may have violated the Department of Justice's misuse of position rules that state that the executive...
You think? Now, this isn't the first time that Ivanka or even other people in the family have been accused of something like this. I don't think they've ever had any criminal charges brought against them or anything like that. I don't even know how this sort of thing plays out, because I don't know that anyone's ever been charged in any administration for this kind of thing. It's very tacky, It's something you wouldn't think you'd have to worry about, but we've been seeing it a lot. Really probably the least of our concerns, but it does just shine a light on this ridiculous dystopia.
Executive branch titles, quote, "should not be used to endorse any product, service, or enterprise." I mean, Claire McCaskill, just take it away.
Well, this is a White House. Yeah, this is a White House that's ignoring a lot of law. I mean, Kellyanne Conway violates the Hatch Act almost every day. I mean, there used to be a time where law was respected, as of all places, in the White House. But the Trump family is so used to promoting their own brand illegally that they don't see the line there about promoting a different brand. You know, the other thing that Ivanka did yesterday that is just so...
You know, you have to wonder if it's purposefully a fuck you. The way it's just so brazen and like, you know, ridiculously staged. I wouldn't put it past them.
Forehead slapping is this new slogan they're putting out that she announced yesterday, the hashtag try something new. This White House is so out of touch. They didn't even realize that on its surface, this is a really dumb slogan because people who are out there desperate for work, this isn't like, oh, go shopping, try something new. This is not the way it feels. And then secondly,
that said, black beans are affordable, but Goya tends to be a little overpriced compared to the others. I just get store brand because I'm a basic bitch. But stocking up for that apocalypse with black beans.
It's an incumbent White House saying try something new. Okay, we get it. Let's do try something new on November 3rd. Let's try something new. I see what
you did there, lady.
So she is really, I think they're flailing. I think everybody has said this morning. I think the White House is flailing for a message. They're flailing in the polls, and they...
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that this is an act of desperation so much. Maybe this is a desperate bid to court Latino voters. If it is, it's a very lazy one. I have a feeling it's the kind of trolling that this administration has been known to participate in. I think it's more akin to that. You know, like she mentioned and like I've mentioned, this administration has violated the Hatch Act many times, but they've never been held responsible for it. So, you know, why wouldn't they just keep going? Anyway. We'll get to that one in a second. It's nice to be rich, isn't it? It's nice to be rich. I'm sure it is. Wall Street is raking in profits in the stock market. The stock market. The stock market. The economy is tanking across the country with layoffs, bankruptcies as far as the eye can see, but the richest sliver of the country continues to do quite well, thank you. Monocle. While other banks are warning about rising loan losses during the recession, Goldman Sachs that is, which tends to serve a higher-end clientele, is sounding a pretty optimistic note. Good for them. In fact, Goldman said it did better than expected, bringing in revenue of $13.3 billion, up 41% from a year ago, and its second highest quarterly revenues ever. It benefited from a record surge in trading of stocks and bonds, as well as profits from investment banking fees. Goldman's profit surge underscores a central fact about the bifurcated U.S. economy right now. While much of the economy faces an uncertain future, Wall Street is enjoying a historic revival as the Federal Reserve and other central banks flooded the global economy with money. So, you know, as we all kind of predicted, massive financial institutions like Goldman Sachs will receive a bailout while we get our paltry $1,200, if you even got that. I personally did not get mine. The Fed has been able to engineer a huge bounce back in the markets by injecting trillions of dollars, benefiting investment banks primarily. This is from Octavio Marenzi, CEO of capital markets consultancy Optimus. I don't know. JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup have also benefited from higher trading profits, though not as much. Both said Monday that they would set aside billions of dollars because they expect more consumers and businesses to have trouble paying off their loans. I'm so sad for JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup for those losses they may experience. Yeah, so this is really just, you know, it's a signal of what people have been saying would happen. Eventually, not eventually, as soon as an economic crisis hits, these massive institutions not only do they take advantage of the situation, they are bailed out by the federal government. While we sit here with nothing, we are getting food from churches while these massive financial institutions get bailed out. And they're thriving. Wildman Willie, good to see you, my friend. Glad you could join us. Getting that third monitor up and shit. Sweet. I don't have 3 monitors. I just got the 2. 3 monitors would be a lot for me. All right. Here's a little bit of a feel-good story, I felt like. A COVID-19 success story in Rwanda. Free testing robot caregivers. This is an interesting story because here in the US, a so-called developed country, we are struggling massively with this disease. Whereas in Rwanda, they're doing quite well. Despite being classified by the World Bank as a low-income country, and despite its limited resources, Rwanda has vowed to identify every coronavirus case. Anyone who tests positive is immediately quarantined at a dedicated COVID-19 clinic. Any contacts of that case who are deemed at high risk are also quarantined either at a clinic or at home until they can be tested. Sounds like what you should be doing. Comprehensive contract tracing is a task that has overwhelmed countries with far more resources than Rwanda. Rwanda's per capita income is roughly $2,000 per year, yet all testing and treatment for the virus is provided for free. Now, here, even America, treatment for the virus is not free. People are racking up bills left and right, even just getting tested for this. I'm gonna butcher this person's name. Nasanzimana says Rwanda's experience dealing with other infectious disease outbreaks is helping it now during the pandemic. The country is using systems and equipment it already had in place to address HIV. Since recording its first case in mid-March, the country of 12 million has recorded just over 1,200 cases. Ohio has a similar size population and has recently been reporting roughly 1,200 cases a day. Just wrap your mind around that for a moment. A country in the supposed global south is beating this thing better than Ohio. I think that should really make us question the idea of American excellence, you know? It's a stark contrast. Rwanda mobilized community healthcare workers and police and college students to work as contact tracers. It set up national and regional command posts to track cases. It's even using human-sized robots in the COVID-19 clinics to take patients' temperature and deliver supplies. Where are our robots, America? America. Where are our robots? Where are our nurse robots that can test us without infecting other people, putting others in danger? Rwanda has them. Why not us? Food for thought. Yeah, one moment. Oh, I forgot. There we go. Anywho, so, you know, that's how things are going in Rwanda. Wildman Willie, the Amish. Yeah, I believe early on the Amish had set up pretty good, you know, systems of quarantine and keeping track of who was coming in and out of their community. Axiomatic FPS, good to see you, my friend. Yes, clearly I am referring to the dystopia of socialized medicine, of a future where people are provided for. Scary stuff. I want robots. I want robots in our streets, in our schools, in our hospitals, testing us. There's one other part I didn't highlight up here, but it's interesting to note. Here's this quote from this is Nissan Nizamana again. So whenever someone is driving a vehicle, bicycle, motorcycle, or even walking, everyone is asked if you wish to get tested. Health officials and personal protective equipment administer the test. They say the testing is voluntary, although some say refusal is frowned upon. Why wouldn't you take a free test? So this is an example of a country doing this well with far less resources than we have. So I'm not sure what excuse we can really muster at this point for why we've had such an awful response. At this point, it's hard to talk about incompetence. And I think it's important to start thinking about these actions as purposeful, intentional, acts of malice. Oh, wow. You're reading my mind, Axiomatic. You got the words out there before I do. Yeah, absolutely. Malice. It's a planned thing. And that's what we're seeing with the schools. I'm not going to get into it too much today because I haven't been able to parse out how much of it is true. But there have been COVID waivers going around for students to sign, go back to school. I read in one instance the waivers were actually just for people participating in athletics, which is kind of standard, but also fucked up that anybody would be sent back to school right now. A frustrating situation. Oh, but we do have another interesting story here. We're going to hear from Tim Pool, a man who I personally believe is actually three mice running levers in his head. That's why he's always wearing the beanie. Let's hear Tim Pool's take on the Native Americans taking over Oklahoma.
This territory was the circus music.
The Norwich goalkeeper, not quite. Not nearly as talented as him.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is real life. Supreme Court gives Native Americans jurisdiction over eastern half of Oklahoma. That's right. If you live in Tulsa, according to the Supreme Court, you are now under the jurisdiction of the Muskogee Nation, and that the state...
Well, that's actually not true, and we're going to get into that a little sooner, or a little later, rather.
...has no right to prosecute you for crimes. Ted Cruz said that SCOTUS literally just gave away half of Oklahoma.
They literally didn't, but...
Boy, if there was going to be some kind of civil war, I'd imagine this would be a major catalyst for it. Basically what...
Wow, we went to civil war really quickly here. Yeah, that's been... There not being a civil war between white Americans and the native tribes here has always been contingent on them, doing whatever we say. It's honestly the kind of rhetoric you see a lot with people protesting police killing and stuff, and protesting in support of Black Lives Matter. You often hear people say things like, well, we allow you to live in this society, and if you keep acting this way, we'll take it away from you. People are getting really mask off really fast lately. Tim Pool is a supreme jackass, but even for him, it's kind of a wild statement. I'm trying to figure out... here we are. Resizing this for y'all. There we go. That'll do. Jesus. Okay. Sorry, I am particular.
happened is the Supreme Court heard an argument that a violent criminal who was arrested in 1997, convicted, he argued, you can't prosecute me because this is Native American territory going back to 1866. And now we've got an official ruling finally in the year 2020. It was a 5-4 decision, and they said, you know what? Yes, half of Oklahoma was never properly established as Oklahoma, and it's still the Muskogee Nation. Native Americans now have full jurisdiction over this, sending shockwaves through many other states. I'm not joking.
Okay, so a lot of what Tim just said now was true. This decision was sparked because of a case involving a man, I think he's 72 now, who's been in prison for a really terrible crime against a child. And he did successfully argue that his case cannot be brought by the Oklahoma court. I'm sorry, I'm eating spinach leaves. You ready to go bust some heads, man? Eating spinach leaves, doing the Popeye thing? Now, the idea that Oklahoma, half of Oklahoma, is now under control of the Muskogee tribe, that's not accurate.
It's literally happening. As Ted Cruz puts it again,
literally happening.
The Supreme Court just gave half the state away. Listen, I understand the history of this nation, conquering lands, taking over territory, westward expansion and all that stuff, and you can be critical of it, but these things have happened. To now reverse hundreds of years of precedent and development and economic expansion of America because imprecise language.
All right, a lot to unpack there. I appreciate that Tim acknowledges that we have a horrifying past in America when it comes to the way that we have treated the native people here. But he very quickly says, well, what are you going to do? You know, it happened. We certainly can't do anything to fix that now because we've made so much progress. The implication there being that progress could not be made unless we made these people suffer and push them to the corners, the edges of states, of their previous territories. Damn, Tim, that's a fucked up thing to say.
I'm sorry, man. Look, what I saw a tweet the other day that from the outside it looks like America is falling apart. Maybe that's what this is, because let me now.
Well, yeah, it does. It does look that way. And I'm going to say that has something to do with the surge in coronavirus numbers, with an economy that on one hand is doing great for people, you know, like Goldman Sachs, the people working for Goldman Sachs. And, you know, the other half of the economy, not half really when you think about it, a much larger percentage is struggling to survive right now, has no idea what next month is going to be like. So yeah, I would say it does look a little bit like America is falling apart.
Tell you what comes next. You see, under this precedent that this territory was never properly established as an American state, and it is still a Native American nation, you have to realize there's many other Native American nations that were conquered by colonists and by early American settlers that we now just consider to be part of America, but will in fact no longer arguably be part of these states.
That would actually be pretty fucking dope, Tim. That would be really cool. Yeah, we should just give it back. What if we just gave it back? Just what would happen? Would that be so terrible? It'd be complicated, but you know, the idea from Tim here is that, you know, we're leading to an internal civil war. We're leading to conflict by acknowledging the rights of people who were here before us. A group of people that are not exactly militarized in this country, you know? We don't have roaming militias of native tribes so much. So I'm not totally sure where Tim's fear is coming from. I did want to move on from that clip and read a couple of things here that kind of put this into perspective, because it's really not nearly as big of a deal for people living in Oklahoma as Tim makes it out to be. So the justices decided 5-4 that an eastern chunk of the state, including its second biggest city, Tulsa, should be recognized as part of a reservation. Only federal prosecutors will have the power to criminally prosecute Native Americans accused of crimes in the area. So this is really what this boils down to. It doesn't affect any non-native person living in that area. So to clarify, why did the justice say this? Justice Neil Gorsuch sided with the court's 4 liberals and also wrote the opinion. He referred to the Trail of Tears, the forcible 19th century relocation of Native Americans, including the Creek Nation, to Oklahoma. The U.S. government said at the time that the new land would belong to the tribes in perpetuity. Justice Gorsuch wrote, "Today we have asked whether the land these treaties promised remains an Indian reservation for purposes of federal criminal law. Because Congress has not said otherwise, we hold the government to its word." Now, coming down here, Chief Justice Roberts said the decision would destabilize the state's courts. He says the decision today creates significant uncertainty for the state's continuing authority over any area that touches Indian affairs, ranging from zoning and taxation to family and environmental law. Now, other people agree with this or disagree with this. A former Chief Justice of the Muskogee Nation Supreme Court dismissed the talk of legal mayhem. He said this would only apply to a small subset of Native Americans committing crimes within the boundaries. And this has been received well by the 5 tribes of Oklahoma. The Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Seminole, and the Muskogee Nation have all welcomed the ruling. Now, in the case of this individual who won in court saying that he could not be charged with a crime by the state of Oklahoma, he is going to be charged by the federal government. So this man is not getting off scot-free. People are not getting out of jail for this. This is not how this works. Tim Pool and a lot of other people on his side of the culture war want us to believe that everything is just breaking down in Oklahoma, and it's nothing like that at all. The status quo really is still, in full effect over there. But, grifter's got to grift. You got to get those views. I get it, man. You got to feed those 3 mice under the beanie. Get those subs. That's right, wild man. No matter who it hurts, right? That's the game. A life well lived is nothing compared to a YouTube account with a lot of subscribers. So this next story is not great. It's pretty fucked. Making some adjustments on my screen over here. Every day it seems like we lean a little further into authoritarian fascist regime. And this is a big turning point, I feel like. The Trump administration stripped CDC of control of coronavirus data. Hospitals have been ordered to bypass the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and send all patient information to a central database in Washington, raising questions about transparency. Here we go. The Trump administration has ordered hospitals to bypass the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and send all COVID-19 patient information to a central database in Washington beginning on Wednesday. The move has alarmed health experts who fear the data will be politicized or withheld from the public. It seems like it was not too long ago when we were accusing another country of doing that. Do y'all remember what it was? Rhina? Chino Pants? I don't remember the name. Maybe it never happened. The new instructions were posted recently in a little noticed document on the Department of Health and Human Services website. From now on, the department, not the CDC, will collect daily reports about the patients that each hospital is treating, the number of available beds and ventilators, and other information vital to tracking the pandemic. Now, you all know that the CDC information has been a really big resource for the show. Almost every show we bring up the numbers. Now I'm not sure we'll be able to do that. I don't know if it'll be a reliable source anymore because of what's happening here. Public health experts have long expressed concerns that the Trump administration is politicizing science and undermining its health experts, in particular the CDC. 4 of the agency's former directors, spanning both Republican and Democratic administrations, said as much in an opinion piece published Tuesday in the Washington Post. The data collection shift reinforced those fears. Yeah, that information is classified. Now, you can pay a fee to request information to that or request access to that information, but it'll take 6 to 8 months, and we lost that request and we can't refund that payment. Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. Here's a quote from Dr. Nicole Lurie, who served as Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response under President Barack Obama. Quote, centralizing control of all data under the umbrella of an inherently political apparatus is dangerous and breeds distrust. It appears to cut off the ability of agencies like CDC to do its basic job. In its new guidance, Health and Human Services said that going forward, hospitals should report detailed information on a daily basis directly to the new centralized system, which is managed by Teletracking, a health data firm with headquarters in Pittsburgh. However, hospitals were already reporting such information to their states. They could continue to do so if they received a written release saying the state would handle reporting. Interesting. I did try to look up information on this teletracking company and the owner, and I wasn't able to find any direct connections between him and the Trump administration. That doesn't mean there isn't one. I just didn't find one in my 15-minute Google search. It's more than fishy. I mean, it's obviously an attempt to obfuscate the numbers and delay responses in the state. It's really a nightmare scenario that they're setting up for. I'm going to get a little more context here from this story.
I want to just read to you from what the New York Times has just posted and ask you to react. The administration orders hospitals to bypass the CDC with key virus data, alarming health experts. Trump administration has ordered hospitals to bypass the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and beginning on Wednesday, that's tomorrow, send all coronavirus patient information to a central database in Washington, a move that has alarmed public health experts who fear the data will be distorted for political gain. How scary is that to you? It's pretty scary to me.
it's also inexplicable. I mean, what is the rationale for bypassing one of the preeminent institutions in the world? The CDC is admired around the world. In fact, other countries have named their own equivalent of a CDC, literally the CDC, the Chinese CDC, for example, is named after ours because we are the ones, because our scientists and public health officials, they are the
CDC.
best in the world. The CDC is supposed to analyze the data coming from different regions of the country and look for trends, identify these trends, inform the public about them, and then also synthesize guidelines and inform the public about what to do next. That's what the CDC is supposed to do. And I don't understand where this data is going instead. I'm really deeply concerned about what we've seen with the attacks on science and public health in recent days, because public health hinges on public trust. And when politicians, including the top public official, the elected official of our country, President Trump, start attacking public health, it really undermines the ability of all of local, state, and federal response to this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, she laid it out pretty plainly.
So the Washington
there.
Post editorial board called it, quote, one of the most...
thank you. Yeah, so not a great look. Not what you want to see during a worldwide pandemic. You would hope that we would, refer to the CDC in these matters and place them at the highest authority, but our administration is bypassing them, criticizing our top doctors working on this. It's just a fucking shit show. Ugh. Oh, is the mic a little quiet? Let me see what I can do for you. Maybe that's a little bit better. Oh, yeah. Wow. It is quiet. I just realized. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. I'm real nervous about it, I really hate to see it. Like I said, I don't feel like we can really rely on the numbers we've been getting anymore. Because starting today, they're going to be tampered with on some level. We'll just have to see. One second here. Okay. So that brings us to our next story here. This one was actually brought to my attention by our good friend Amateur. So right now, it looks like there is an ongoing effort to destroy the Postal Service so that it can be privatized, which has been going on for a long time. It's really been going on since 2006, and efforts have kind of been boosted by the GOP lately. So we'll look at this story here. Postal Service memos detail difficult changes, including slower mail delivery. Analysts say the memos recast the USPS as a business rather than a government service. The new head of the U.S. Postal Service established major operational changes Monday that could slow down mail delivery, warning employees that agency would not survive unless it made difficult changes to cut costs. But critics say such a philosophical sea change would sacrifice operational efficiency and cede its competitive edge to UPS, FedEx, and other private sector rivals. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy told employees to leave behind mail at distribution centers if it delayed letter carriers from their routes. Quote, if the plants run late, they will keep the mail for the next day. Traditionally, postal workers are trained not to leave letters behind and to make multiple delivery trips to ensure timely distribution of letters and parcels. Analysts say the documents present a stark reimagining of the USPS that could chase away customers, especially if the White House gets the steep package rate increase it wants and puts the already beleaguered agency in deeper financial peril as private sector competitors embark on hiring sprees to build out their own delivery networks. Now, this Postmaster General was recently appointed by Trump.
President Trump is not backing down from his
Learn about him a
United
little bit
States
here. This was
Postal
back in
Service.
May.
He's now installing a well-known loyalist to enact his vision. Louis DeJoy will take over the agency in mid-June. DeJoy is a fundraiser for the Republican National Convention. He'll take over at a time when the Postal Service...
So, cronyism prevails again, it seems. Lewis works with the campaign, donated $360,000 plus, and he will be the first person who has held the position of Postmaster General and who has never worked at the USPS. Who does that remind us of? Reminds me of Miss Davos, who has never been a teacher, and yet Secretary of Education. A lot of that going around.
Is negotiating with the Treasury Department for $10 billion in coronavirus-related aid. I want to bring in Lisa Ryan. She covers federal agencies and the Trump administration for the Washington Post. So, Lisa, what changes does the president want to make in the post office, and why is DeJoy his pick to act out this plan?
Hi, Rena. Well, the Postal Service...
Because they'll gut the Postal Service and turn it into a business.
Said that the Board of Governors did an extensive search to replace the outgoing Postmaster General, Megan Brennan, who had come up through the ranks. And Mr. DeJoy would be the first Postmaster General in 20 years to be an outsider. And he's a former businessman who owned a logistics supply company, and his company was actually a client of the Postal Service way back when. As you said, he's a big
at least he works in logistics.
He's given more than $2 million since 2016 to Trump, to President Trump and to Republican candidates. So the Treasury Secretary acting on the president's behalf had a big hand in this appointment. What Trump really wants is structural change to the Postal Service, which he has long complained, is losing money and should not get a bailout. But his primary beef is really with Amazon. The owner of Amazon is Jeff Bezos, who also owns the Washington Post. President Trump does not like the way the Post has covered his administration and has complained many times, both publicly and fumed privately to his aides.
It's funny to think about that because just Trump and Bezos are really in the same bed. To think of them as like antagonists is silly. They're clearly working towards the same end result. But, this is just another case of cronyism enabled by Trump, the deepening of the swamp that is eroding good American institutions. I'm not for American institutions or any institutions for the most part, but the Postal Service is a pretty good service, Now, the reason the Postal Service is struggling is because back in 2006, Republicans required them to start funding their, what do you call it? When you pay people after they're done working. Gosh, y'all, I'm blanking. I should have eaten more before this. Anyway, the Postal Service is supposed to fund the pension plans. Yes, the pension plans, as well as the insurance, medical insurance for its employees for 75 years. Plan it out for 75 years worth of employees. No other company does that. Usually what you do is you plan for it as they come in and out. That's the normal way. But this burden has been placed on the Postal Service in an effort to basically, run them to the ground so that they can be privatized. And I don't want a subscription service for my mailbox. I don't want to pay more to ship things than I already do. It's it's something that is going to definitely affect poor people more adversely. You know, businesses that don't make as much money but need these services for logistical reasons, you know? Axiomatic. Then you have to pay to vote. Exactly. And you also lose the privacy that is guaranteed with the USPS, you know? I don't want some private company picking over what I've said and done and tossing out my ballot for the candidate that's gonna, you know, regulate them. There's a lot of ways you can see this going badly. Let me see. We are going to get on to the next part of this story in just a minute here. Let me fix up this headline. Unfortunately, this next story is also going to be in the kind of more depressing side of things. All right, so you guys have probably started seeing some of these videos getting around of federal police officers in Seattle arresting people. They're heavily armed, they're in fatigues. Take a look at this video here.
What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What is going on? Who are you? NLG will get you out. What's your name? Tell us your name.
What's your name?
Okay, you're fine. We'll get you out.
Bro, what?
We got you, friend.
We got you.
Oh, fuck.
NLG.
You just violated their rights.
Oh. Kidnapping people.
So they're putting him into this unmarked van.
You just violated their rights.
From what I've read, they're rentals. There are more videos of stuff like this happening. It's pretty scary to have federal police in the city not identifying themselves, just rushing up on people and arresting them. We saw the same thing in DC recently when Bill Barr had a bunch of people with the prison system out there. No badges, nothing to identify them, no cameras. You know, it's straight up Gestapo shit. And my fear is that we'll start seeing these people, these federal officers, you know, arresting activists in their homes, just showing up. I want to see if they had posted any more in here. Oh God, I'm an idiot. I put Seattle. It is not Seattle. It is Portland. I keep getting the two mixed up. God. I'm an embarrassment. Portland, not Seattle. These are two different places. Or so I've been told. Yeah, here's another one. The federal cops tear gassing protesters. It's not great. So here's a story from KGW8. who are these federal officers sent to Portland to deal with the protesters?
Now, if you caught just a whiff of local news over the weekend, you might already have kind of an idea of what our big story is tonight. But now I'm sure some of you have seen at this point some of the headlines from Saturday night and into Sunday morning. A federal agent outside Portland's Justice Center shot a man in the head with some kind of impact munition, a crowd control weapon. It nearly killed him. It was caught on camera. That video has now gone viral. And today,
the federal police shot a man in the head. Almost killed him.
26-year-old Donovan Labella is in Legacy Emanuel Hospital in serious condition. His family telling reporters the impact from that fractured his skull. So those, as they say, are just the facts. But here's where things start to diverge. Now, on one hand, you've got this narrative that says Donovan threw a smoke grenade at federal agents. But on the other hand, the story goes federal agents attacked a peaceful protester doing nothing more than exercising his First Amendment right. Now, seeing as though we are in the fact business, not the narrative business, despite some of the emails we get from time to time, we figured the best way to settle all of this for you would to just be to go ahead and play you the darn video. So that's what we're going to do, only this once. And since we're only showing it once,
just this once, as a treat,
is what you're going to see. Labella is the man you'll see in the middle of the frame, holding a speaker over his head. You'll see how he handles the tear gas that lands in his feet. You'll see him drop when he gets hit in the head, and you'll see people rush over to help him. The whole video lasts about 20 seconds. So if you don't want to watch, now's the time to go ahead and glance down at your phone, something like that. In the meantime, here it is.
Hey, get the Hey, kick that
Holy shit.
Okay, that's it. That's the last time that you're going to see it on this show. If you want to see it again, that's up to you. Plenty of ways to find it. No judgment. Honestly, I've watched it about 30 times, and at this point kind of have an opinion on it. Now, look, I've been doing this long enough to know that you can't judge an entire situation from a 20-second video clip, and this is a really easy one to want to do that with. That said, when I read that he threw a gas canister back at agents as the reason that he was shot in the face, in my 30 views, that's not what I saw, not in that 20 seconds. I saw him toss it maybe 2 or 3 feet underhand and step backwards with his hands over his head, holding a speaker, not a weapon or something that could be confused as a weapon, while off.
It was a very gentle, casual toss away from him.
Officers lined up on the other side of the street. But look, that's just my read of that 20 seconds of video. You're free to disagree. But it does raise an interesting question. Why are federal troops suddenly all over Portland? We're a month and a half into protests. Why are we seeing this now? The head of our federal government, our president, gave us some insight about it this morning.
We've done a great job in Portland. Portland was totally out of control, and they went in, and I guess we have many people right now in jail, and we very much...
And a man in the hospital after being shot in the face.
...quelled it, and if it starts again, we'll quell it again very easily. It's not hard to do if you know what you're doing.
Now, I know it's probably hard for you to imagine, but Senator Ron Wyden was pretty critical of the president and the federal response last night. Kyle Aboshi talked to him and the U.S. Attorney for Oregon to get a better understanding of what the feds are doing at these protests.
The U.S. Marshal Service will conduct a full investigation after a federal officer shot and seriously injured a Portland protester in the head with a crowd control weapon this weekend. The incident captured on video and shared on social media.
I appreciate that the anchor, pointed out that this is obviously bullshit. I wish they would quit showing this tweet from Andy. I assume most of y'all know about this guy, but he actively works against Antifa and BLM, actually provides kill lists to white supremacists, tries to reveal identities of people participating in demonstrations, just an all-around piece of shit. Just really reprehensible
Media
scum.
has drawn harsh criticism from elected leaders, including Oregon Senator Ron Wyden.
There's no other way to describe that act as the act of essentially an occupying army that sees their role as suppressing protest, even when it's peaceful.
Federal law enforcement, including the U.S. Marshals, Federal Protective Service, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and Homeland Security, were called in earlier this month from outside the area to help protect federal buildings and personnel in downtown Portland, including the federal courthouse, which prosecutors say has already seen more than $50,000 in damage. The feds have made roughly a dozen arrests.
It's a constant theme we're seeing. Federal troops, federal officers, National Guard deployed to protect property. Not deployed to protect people, not deployed to who hand out, tests or food, but to protect property against protesters. Wow, man. I believe that did happen in the past few days. This story is from July 13th. I'm guessing
one
within the past few
protester,
days.
they say, attacked a federal agent with a hammer, and another busted for shining a green laser at officers, explained U.S. Attorney for Oregon, Billy Williams.
This does nothing. This does nothing other than endanger the lives of law enforcement as well as those who choose to engage in criminal behavior. They're not protesters. They're just lawless actors.
Unlike Portland police, which is subject to a court order limiting the use of tear gas, federal agents can use a variety of crowd-controlled devices. This photo shows the equipment worn by U.S. Marshals when confronting protesters. The U.S. Attorney in Oregon...
Absolutely insane. This right here looks like a soldier. Looks like somebody sent to occupy a country. It's wild.
Explained, federal officers will continue to rotate in to help protect federal property.
It might be a dozen team members from this agency or a dozen team members from that agency. It could be 15, could be, somewhere in that neighborhood.
The U.S. Marshals
So they're just pulling from different agencies.
The officer involved in this weekend's use of less than lethal munitions or provided any additional details. The case has been forwarded on to the Office of Inspector General for an internal review. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Mayor Wheeler took some criticism for waiting most of the day yesterday before issuing.
So I think that did a pretty good job of covering, what's going on here. Federal officers from a variety of, alphabet soup organizations are being deployed out, protecting property, federal property. How many arrests have they said they've made? Nearly a dozen people. And of course, they're characterizing them as lawless actors, even though we've already seen people peacefully protesting getting arrested by them. So what can federal officers do that local police can't? So they're able to use tear gas, a variety of crowd control devices, but it's not clear exactly all that they have available. Now, apparently they must comply with agency protocol and standards for use of force. Okay. The U.S. Marshal Service asked for an internal investigation of this weekend's incident. That's what we heard before. We don't have any faith in the Department of Justice to handle this, obviously, under this administration. We'd be foolish to think about that, to think that would happen. Speaking of police, I've got one last bit to dive into. Wildman, I know you saw this one today as well. This is from The Intercept, which has put out some really good stories in the past few days. Leaked documents show police knew far-right extremists were the real threat at protests, not Antifa. Surprise. The cache of law enforcement materials was... Okay, hold up. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So as protests against police violence spread to every state in the U.S. and dramatic images flooded in from cities across the country, President Donald Trump and his attorney general spun an ominous story of opportunistic leftists exploiting a national trauma to sow chaos and disorder. They were the anti-fascists known as Antifa. But while the White House beat the drum for a crackdown on a leaderless movement on the left, law enforcement offices across the country were sharing detailed reports of far-right extremists seeking to attack the protesters and police during the country's historic demonstrations, a trove of newly leaked documents reveals. The cache of law enforcement materials was recently hacked and posted online under the title Blue Leaks, providing an unprecedented look at the communications between state, local, and federal law enforcement in the face of nationwide protests. In an analysis of nearly 300 documents that reference Antifa, The Intercept found repeated instances of Antifa and left-wing protesting activities cast in cartoonishly grim terms, alongside more substantive reports of lethal right-wing violence and threats that have received scant mention from top Trump administration officials. Quote, throughout the documents, you see counterterrorism agencies using extremism so broadly as to mean virtually anything that encompasses dissent. This is a quote from Hina Shamsi, director of the ACLU's National Security Project. Another quote, there are instances in which people engaging in white supremacist violence get the benefit of the doubt as potential lone offenders, while people of color and those who dissent against government injustice are smeared as threats with guilt by association. I'm just going to read a few more interesting parts from this very long article. Really great work here by The Intercept. Michael German, a former FBI agent specializing in domestic terrorism, offers some thoughts here. Quote, here we're seeing this politicization of counterterrorism is being reflected in intelligence documents that are going out and are intended to inform state and local law enforcement on the ground. Overall, what you see is a strange sensationalization of the Antifa threats, and that doesn't exist when looking at the Boogaloo documents. German argued that the impulse to paint both sides of the political spectrum with the same brush, despite the fact that only the far right is actively killing people, is among the most dangerous features of modern American law enforcement. And this is something that we've been honestly complaining about since 9/11. The FBI and other agencies were targeting Muslim and Arab groups while completely ignoring white supremacist groups that have been able to flourish in the past couple of decades. Yet the leaked materials show that on May 29th, Okay. 2 days before Trump tweeted that Antifa would be labeled as a terrorist organization and Barr issued his DOJ statement, the president's own DHS analyst issued an open source intelligence report detailing how a white supremacist channel on Telegram, an encrypted messaging service, was encouraging followers to capitalize on the unrest by targeting police with Molotov cocktails and firearms. Now, you might see people, leftists, joking about Molotov cocktails on Twitter, but that has not been what's happening in the streets. In some cases, property is being attacked, but the police really haven't been in danger the way that they've been put in by the right-wing activists. Activists, I don't know why I use that word, right-wing terrorists. So, some developments cited by them were, one was a May 29th assassination of a federal court security guard in Oakland. The alleged perpetrator would later be identified as Stephen Carrillo, a 32-year-old sergeant in an elite Air Force security unit. According to authorities, Carrillo would go on to ambush and kill a sheriff's deputy and wound several others in a second targeted attack days later. In court filings last month, the FBI reported that the airman had a ballistics vest bearing a boogaloo patch. Following a shootout with police, Carrillo reportedly used his own blood to scrawl phrases associated with the movement on the hood of a vehicle he had carjacked. Now, this story got almost nothing from the press, no attention whatsoever. It was in the middle of these protests, but no attention from the press, no attention from the administration. No one wanted to talk about, a boog boy murdering cops. While Carrillo was on the run in California, the FBI's Minneapolis office circulated uncorroborated online discussions between unidentified individuals indicating that Antifa wanted to massacre National Guard personnel at the Minnesota State Capitol in an unprecedented vehicle-borne explosive attack. Yeah, unprecedented for sure. Antifa has no experience with explosives. No, it's not been a thing. It's never been a thing. In the June 1st report, the Bureau's Minneapolis office noted that the intelligence coming in was based on photos of National Guard vehicles that did not appear to come from Minnesota, that it was the product of an outside office, and that, quote, given current circumstances in the Twin Cities, the FBI Minneapolis field office cautions that the source may have potentially provided intelligence to influence recipients. And this really, matches up with that story we read about towns in the Midwest getting reports of Antifa coming to loot and destroy and preparing as such, I did highlight some more. All over the country, from California to Texas to West Virginia, law enforcement was chasing Antifa leads and looking to hunt down instigators. The Blue Leaks document suggests a borderline obsession on the part of some law enforcement offices with painting Antifa, anarchists, and left-wing dissent more broadly as a serious terrorist threat. In early June, New Jersey's Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness issued a 2-page report detailing how legal observers with the National Lawyers Guild, a progressive association of attorneys and legal advocates that has been around since the 1930s, were in fact an anarchist extremist subgroup. Now, these are the people you see wearing the vests and the hard hats with the bulletin boards and everything. They're lawyers. Quote, lawyers may be identified by their bright green neon hats or clothing. However, these individuals may or may not be licensed lawyers. Their role is to record information regarding the interactions Antifa members are having during an arrest. This individual will record the interaction with the aid of another member while noting information. The lawyer will also obtain booking information and are known to argue with police over arrests and interactions. Yes, anarchists are well known for taking notes and arguing with police over the legality of things. Getting real deep into the weeds of the legal system. That's what anarchists are really interested in. Anti-fascists were bent on infiltrating protests over the killing of George Floyd by Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin to further their violent ideology, the New Jersey office reported, and continue to attack government institutions, use violent counter-protest tactics against adversarial groups, including law enforcement, and target political figures representing disparate views. This was not the first time the New Jersey's Homeland Office had its sights set on leftists. In a 2018 report, the office compiled a color-coded chart of the biggest terror threats to New Jersey. Anarchist extremists were third, in the moderate section below Al-Qaeda and the Arabian Peninsula, but above the Islamic State. Anarchists made the list again in 2019, this time climbing to second, just below homegrown violent extremists. Moving on up. They fell to third in 2020, however, with white supremacist extremists finally cracking New Jersey's top 3 after several centuries of organized terror and killing. Wow, this is the wildest Premier League ever and the wildest relegations, featuring clubs like the anarchist extremists, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and homegrown violent extremists. Hope they make it back to the league after being relegated. The Intercept asked the New Jersey police, the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security or whatever, about its justification for considering anarchists a greater public safety threat than terrorist groups that have killed thousands of people, and whether the office has ever aided investigations into legal observers. The office said that it does not disclose operational or investigative details and sources. How convenient. I think that is everything from this piece that I highlighted. There's so much more here. It's a fantastic piece. I highly recommend it. And wow, I went through this a lot faster than I was expecting today. I want to make sure. Yeah, we hit all the main points today. Usually try to go for 2 hours, but, no point in stretching things out. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm excited that I got my 2 shows in this week on schedule. We're going to keep moving forward with this schedule for now, I think. So y'all can expect to see me again for sure on Sunday afternoon. We'll be here with another newscast. I'm going to try to get in here more to do some just fun streams because, man, these newscasts can be a drag sometimes with the info provided. Yeah, I definitely want to play some games more on stream. I'd kind of like to talk about games media more on stream, so I'm thinking maybe planning on something like that for Friday. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, I appreciate everyone tuning in. Wildman, when are you playing with me? When are we playing together? Absolutely. We need to figure out some Warzone or some WoW or something fun. And I don't know. I know we'll have a good time. Like, we just got to do it. Still want to play that Man of Medan game too. Oh yeah, man, lasers and feelings, that's still definitely gonna happen. I gotta put some more writing in this week. So I'm looking forward to playing that with all of you. Yeah, I'd be down to stream that. Anyway, folks, I appreciate you all tuning in. Big thanks to my regulars, Wildman Willie. Make sure you're following his channel. I think he just got to 50 followers yesterday, so it should be about time for affiliate if you haven't already made it, my friend. Axiomatic FPS, thank you as always for joining us. Everyone else, thank you all for joining. Hope if you enjoyed the content that you will follow me here because I'm working towards that 50. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at WorstChase. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Stay safe, stay at home, wash your hands, fart on cops. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one. Take it easy.